G'day, Stephen Frost here from Go Blue. When was the last time you saw research on the risk posed by water pollution, regulation, scarcity or other factors to the garment and apparel sector? I mean, it's not as though water's a non-issue, right? For instance, the Swedish Water Textile Initiative runs projects for 277 suppliers, brands and government institutions across Ethiopia, Bangladesh, China, India and Turkey to solve water-related problems. In Indonesia, textile factories in the city of Majalaya, once home to 40% of the country's industry, polluted the Citarum River so badly it's now referred to as the world's most polluted. In August 2017, the Central Pollution Control Board in Uttar Pradesh in India issued directions to shut down 387 industrial units, including tanneries and textile mills, after inspections found they had been violating pollution control norms. In one of the most recent corporate initiatives in my newsletter, Fast Retailing, the owner of Uniqlo and J Brand, reported it had developed a washing process for jeans cutting water usage by up to 99%. Just last week, I reported on Gina Lagia, a Spanish company developing sustainable technologies for garment finishing, which has reduced water usage in the garment finishing process to 1 glass, 1 garment. I could go on. The apparel and textile industry is not unaware of the risk associated with water, but reports on that risk are few and far between. Back in 2010, Responsible Research published Water in China, focusing on the rapidly developing importance of water as a material factor in investment analysis and action within China. As full disclosure here, I was an original investor in this Singapore startup. In August 2017, Hong Kong-based China Water Risk released a report titled Insights from China's Textile Manufacturers, Gaps to Overcome for Clean and Circular Fashion, which analysed the insights into the challenges faced by 85 Chinese textile manufacturers on challenges to going clean and circular. But otherwise, reports have been few and far between. So I was pleasantly surprised to see the publication last week of a report called Textile and Garment Sector in Vietnam, Water Risks and Solutions by WWF and the Vietnam Textile and Apparel Association, sponsored by Tommy Hilfiger and HSBC's Water Program. It's a substantial report and required reading, I believe, by any sustainability professional in a brand or retailer sourcing from Vietnam. In the report, risk is divided into shortages, pollution, flood damage, governance and regulations, reputational, and transboundary. There is much useful information and background data on the textile and garment sector in Vietnam as a whole, but I want to focus on the water aspects. This box on page 28 provides a useful overview, including that in the Red River and Mekong River deltas, particularly around Hanoi and Ho Chi Minh City, groundwater is exploited beyond its recharge capacity, and that the effectiveness of the country's regulatory regime is undermined by its complexity and the fragmentation of implementation responsibility across multiple ministries and levels of government. On page 40, the report summarises water risks, including, for instance, that the highest threats relating to surface water shortages are in the southern half of the country, and that the government has indicated their intention to ban groundwater use in the Mekong Delta by 2025. The most useful part of the report, however, is where the authors indicate what various risk factors mean for the textile sector, including an evaluation of the level of risk in the next 5 years and opportunities for mitigating that risk. Let's take the topic of surface water shortages as an example of how this looks on paper. The first section is water risk, and this includes issues such as increasing frequency of severe El Nino-induced drought events and little political appetite or feasible potential for supply-side management in Vietnam's heavily industrialized and populated areas. These are useful insights for anybody wanting to manage potential risk related to water in their company's supply chain in Vietnam, and it's just not possible to find comparable information for other countries. What I really like about this report, though, is the next section, on what it means for the textile sector, and the level of risk and stakeholder comments. For instance, the threat to factories and brands arising from this risk includes factories forced to temporarily reduce the rate at which they take and use surface water supplies during severe droughts, and the level of risk more likely for factories operating in the southeastern region. Once again, this is not readily available information in most markets. And then the report provides a long list for mitigating risk. There's a lot here for sustainability managers to mull over and should help any company better identify and categorize risk in Vietnam in order to develop strategies to mitigate. I can't be the only person hoping WWF does not stop with Vietnam. There are at least a dozen countries to which this exercise could be usefully adapted. That's all from me today. Thanks for listening. I'll see you next time.